If you've been following my reselling journey for any amount of time, then you know that I started this as a side hustle and grew it until I could quit my soul-sucking job and do this full time. I now make more money than I ever thought was possible, and I get to teach others how to do the same. So much has happened since I decided to sell my first item, which, by the way, was a broken laptop. And I haven't really gone into much detail about what took place between then and now. As I started to give some details, I realized that there are so many of you that are interested in growing this business as a side hustle and eventually going full time. A lot of you are in the exact same situation that I was, and I really wanted to rewind, share my experiences with you so that you can press fast forward on your reselling goals and learn from my mistakes. In today's video, I'm going to be sharing 5 things with you that I did wrong in my first 3 years of reselling. And what I'd recommend that you do instead if you're somebody that wants to make consistent income reselling, but in about half the time as everybody else. My first 3 years of reselling were when I was doing this part-time and moving up until that 3rd year and eventually doing this full-time. Probably the biggest mistake that I made was thinking that this could never be anything bigger than a small side hustle. I figured that I could just sell things around my house, make a few bucks here and there, and even when I did start to learn from people online who were doing this full time, I just thought that could never be me. And so having this limited belief made me operate in a way that made this seem not like a business, but rather a hobby. And that drastically impacted how quickly I chose to grow. You may not realize it right now, but if you're telling yourself that there's no way I'd make X amount of dollars per month, or there's no way I'd be able to list the same amount as so-and-so, then you never will, because that limited belief is going to make you operate differently. So tell yourself, even if you think there's no way that this will be more than a side hustle, that this is a serious way to make money and it should be treated seriously. Number 2 was I lost money because I wasn't tracking. Because I didn't take this seriously in the beginning, I didn't keep track of really anything, my receipts, how much I was listing, what my fees were, subscriptions that I may or may not have been paying for. I just kept telling myself that as long as I did the actions that other resellers were doing, such as sourcing and listing, that I'd always be in good shape. And it wasn't until the end of the year when I was forced to take a look at my numbers that I'd procrastinated on due to having to file those taxes that I realized I was actually losing money some months. There were months where I was breaking even or losing money, but spending hours to do so on top of my other job when I could have been using that same time to not lose money and to go do something fun for myself. I also didn't realize because I wasn't tracking that I thought I was saving money by not having an eBay store subscription because I just figured the lowest tier is going to be the cheapest, right? But it turns out that if I would have purchased an eBay store subscription, that I actually could have been saving $80 a month based on how much I was listing and how much I would have been saving from the free listings that I would have gotten from that subscription. There are so many examples I could give you where I lost out on money simply because I wasn't paying attention to my numbers. And mostly it was because I thought that they were too scary to look at. Keeping track of your numbers, even though it seems scary, is one of the best things that you could ever do for your business. Which leads me to number 3, which was I thought that tracking my numbers would take a lot of time, effort, and that it was just simply too complicated, which is the main reason I procrastinated on it in the first place. But the truth is that all you really need to know is what is coming in and what is coming out. A lot of resellers overcomplicate this. In fact, for most resellers, you could probably do your bookkeeping monthly in 30 minutes or less. Once you get a system down, you know where to look for all of the numbers and you have everything in one place, then it's really simple to look at and see what's coming in and what's coming out of your bank account. One of the biggest stress reliefs for me in terms of tracking my numbers was moving everything to one bank account. And in the beginning, I wasn't an LLC. I wasn't registered as a business. I was just doing this as a side hustle. And so I was just registered as a sole proprietor. When you're a sole prop, you don't need to go get a business account, unless that's obviously something you want to do and you want to get registered. But for most people, I think you could probably just be a sole prop and you can just get another personal bank account and just make sure to run everything through that. Separate that completely from your personal expenses, and then you'll have an automatic log of everything that went in and out, and it does most of the work for you. But you don't need to be tracking everything on such a minute detail. As long as you get everything into one account, it really can take you a very short amount of time to track numbers. And it's not as complicated as you think. Number 4 is I thought that if I just listed a lot, that it would make me more money. Having a larger store is what everybody talked about in the reseller community, and it is a strategy that a lot of people used of having X amount of items in your store to sell a percentage of that store is what is going to make you money. I put all of my focus into just getting as much inventory as possible and listing as much inventory as possible with the limited amount of time that I had. But the truth is that more important than how many items you have in your store is how quickly those items are actually selling. Because you can have a store that sells 200 items and has 200 listings available and turn that over every single month. And yes, there are tons of resellers doing that. Or you can have a store that sells the same 200 items a month, but you have 2,000 items listed in your store. The choice is yours, and it's the difference between which business model strategy that you're going to use. And so I would look into strategies that maximize your specific situation and what you have available to you, and ask yourself, what strategy or business model can I use with my resources that is going to help me turn over inventory as quickly as possible? You do not want to keep a ton of inventory in your store. I found when I was trying to do what everybody else was doing and fill my store with inventory that I was making a lot of sales, but my inventory was growing. It was overwhelming the small space that I had in my apartment, and I was running out of room. And I was feeling exhausted from all of the time that I was spending just trying to chug along and get more and more and more. I now know that having a smaller store, but more sales going through and more inventory churning is what I am focused on in my business, because that is the most efficient method. It's what's going to make you sales, but keep you the least amount of stress. And lastly, number 5 is I thought it was too early in the game for me to buy a label printer. In the beginning, it didn't seem like I was making much money compared to what I was bringing in at my other job. So I just, for whatever reason, didn't feel comfortable yet investing into expensive equipment. Or once I finally realized how much time, how much energy I would have saved by having a thermal label printer, meaning not having to print out the paper, spend the money on ink, cut with my scissors, buy clear tape and tape over everything. Once I realized how much time and money I was wasting on that, I finally invested into a thermal label printer and I made more money. The return on investment for that purchase happened immediately. There are a lot of tools that I wish I would have bought sooner, but that one is definitely a no-brainer, especially if you're having consistent sales and shipping stuff out every single day. So that's one small example, but what I really learned is that just because you're early into your reselling journey does not mean that you can't make smart investments. Sure, you don't want to go out and buy a bunch of stuff and deck out your office, and you probably don't need to. In fact, 10 years later, after starting my reselling journey, I am here and I'm looking at everything that I can eliminate. I'm trying to get back to basics and minimalist reselling and removing as much equipment as possible. You probably don't need all that stuff, but there are some things that will save you time and make you more productive that are worth getting, even in your early years of reselling. All right, you guys, so those were just 5 out of probably like 1,000 things I did wrong my first 3 years of reselling. If you're interested in hearing more about that journey of me going from part-time to now full-time reselling and how I really grew that business with some of those details mixed in, then let me know down below. I've been getting a lot of feedback as I've been sharing stuff on Reels that you do want to hear more about this. So let me know what exactly you want to hear about. What specific questions do you have if you're currently in your first 3 years of reselling? Thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.